Hey, what's up guys, welcome back. In this video, we will add the Earth and the Terrian model. So by the end of this video, we will first add the Terrian model at the bottom of the cylindrical target so that the base of the cylindrical target gets covered. After this, we will add the Earth model on top of the cylinder target. So let's start with the customization. Now the first thing which I'll add in the scene is the terrains. Okay, so I'll open the low poly fantasy cloud folder. I'll then open the models folder, and as you can see inside the model folder we have 12 sets of terrain. Okay, so you can choose any terrain you want. Okay, now the terrain which I'll use is this RJ terrain mesh 11. Okay, so I'll drag it inside the scene. And if you look over here, the terrain model is over here, but the axis of the terrain model are basically outside the model. Okay, so the terrain model is over here, but the axis is placed somewhere over here. Okay, so I'll first select the terrain model and I'll change its x-axis to 0. I'll change the y-axis also to 0, and I'll change the z-axis to 0. Okay, so as you can see, when I change the x, y and z axis to 0, the axis of the terrain model has come in the center. Okay, that is, the axis of the terrain model are exactly at the same position where a cylinder target is. But since the terrain model and the axis are at different positions, so you can see the terrain model is somewhere over here. So I'll select the terrain model. After this, I'll select the z axis and I will move the terrain model exactly below the cylinder. So now as you can see, a cylinder is in the center of this terrain. Okay, next I'll select the scale tool and I'll increase the scale of this terrain. So I'll select the gray cube and I'll increase the size of the terrain. So the terrain has again gone out of the cylinder. So I'll select the position tool again and I'll move the terrain in the center. So after adding the terrain, next I'll go inside the asset store. And from the asset store, this time we will download a low poly earth asset. Okay, so in the search field I'll type low poly earth. Okay, I'll press enter. I'll click on free only, as the asset which you're looking for is free. Okay, and this is the asset which we'll be using, that is stylized earth. So I'll open it. Okay, after this I'll click on the import button to import this earth asset inside a project. I'll click on the import button again. Okay, so the stylized earth asset is imported inside a project. So I'll click on the assets folder, and inside the assets folder, as you can see, this is a new folder by the name of low poly earth. So I'll double click on it and open it. And as you can see, this is the low poly earth prefab. So I'll go inside the scene panel and I'll drag the low poly earth prefab inside the hierarchy. Okay, I will adjust the position of this low poly earth. Okay, so I'll give this an x value of 0. I'll give this a y value of 0 for the time being, and I'll give this a z value of 0 so that the earth is exactly at the same position where the cylinder is. Okay, next I'll select the low poly earth model and I'll drag it on top. Okay, so I'll place the low poly earth model exactly on top of a cylinder, and the scale of this model is small, so I'll select the scale tool and I'll increase the scale of this earth model. Okay, I'll just move it a little bit on top, and at the end I'll save the scene. So guys, after adding the low poly earth and this RJ terrain mesh 11 model, okay, next I'll select the terrain and the earth model and I'll make them a child of the cylinder target. Okay, after this I'll click on Ctrl S and I'll save my scene, and next I'll click on the play button to check the final output. So now as you can see, we have this earth model on top of a cylinder target, and at the bottom of the cylinder we have this terrain. So guys, that's it from this video, and in the next video we will write the program to rotate these game objects.